"You don't belong in first class, kid." That was the last thing Finn Monroe heard before it happened. The slap cracked across his face like a gunshot. Clean, quick. Everyone in the cabin turned. Finn didn't move. No tears, no sound. Just the soft glow from his wrist console, lighting up like nothing else mattered. Flight attendant Barbara Shaw straightened her jacket like she'd done the right thing. "He ignored me 3 times, she said to the passengers. "I thought he was being rude." A man 2 rows back whispered, "That kid didn't even speak." Barbara smiled awkwardly. "Exactly. Row 1A. A man slowly unbuckled his seatbelt. No anger in his face. Just focus. Calculated stillness. Dr. Elias Monroe, founder of NeuroCore Systems, billionaire, widower, father. He didn't say a word to Barbara. He didn't raise his voice. He turned to his son and said gently, "Finn, protocol?" Finn blinked once. His fingers moved across the interface on his wrist like he was composing music only he could hear. "Clearlock protocol initiated root access, FM, system override, FAA grid. Confirmed 152 flights suspended, 740 miles operations frozen." And then, the lights above dimmed. A soft chime echoed through the cabin. Not the airlines. Federal. Barbara froze. What was that? Someone's phone buzzed. Then another. Then 12. All emergency notifications. Screens turned red. TSA, FAA, DOT, all flagged. The captain called from the cockpit, voice shaken. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a systems-wide halt. Stand by for directive override." Nobody understood what was happening. But in row 1A, the boy they thought didn't belong had just changed the entire flight industry without saying a word. "Tell us where you're watching from." And if you would have said something before he did, because this wasn't just about a slap. This was about who gets to stay silent and still be heard. Barbara stood frozen. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Phones were still buzzing. One man in business class cursed under his breath. A woman across the aisle was already filming. The tension in the cabin was now beyond awkward. It was electric. Finn didn't move. Still seated, still silent, still staring forward. His wrist device dimmed as if nothing had happened. Just a quiet boy with a small screen and a world-shifting protocol at his fingertips. Barbara finally snapped, "Sir, I need you both to stay seated." Elias didn't flinch. His voice was calm, but steel-cut. "You assaulted a minor," he said. "You ignored his condition. You struck him for being quiet." Barbara's eyes darted around. She knew she had messed up. She just didn't know how badly. The captain's voice crackled overhead, strained. We've just been notified of a system-wide clearlock hold. Flight operations suspended pending federal audit. Please remain calm. We are currently grounded." Grounded, mid-air. Barbara stammered, "Wait, what is clearlock?" Elias looked up, finally meeting her eyes. "It's a federal ethics override system." She blinked. "So, what does that have to do with you?" He didn't answer, but 3 rows down, someone else did. A quiet businessman lowered his phone, staring at the screen. "Monroe, as in Dr. Elias Monroe, the guy who built Clearlock?" Barbara's face went pale, and next to Elias, Finn turned slowly, just slightly, and locked eyes with her. He didn't speak, but he didn't have to, because in that moment, everyone in first class understood the same terrifying thing. This boy didn't scream when he was slapped. He didn't cry. He wrote the system. The plane hadn't moved in 10 minutes. Not an inch. The seatbelt sign was still on. The captain hadn't come out of the cockpit. The flight crew stood whispering near the galley, checking their tablets every 5 seconds like they were waiting for permission to breathe. Nobody knew what was happening, except Elias and Finn. Across the country, at the FAA Emergency Response Center, 4 monitors were flashing red with the same 3 words: root lock activated. Triggered not by a pilot, not by a terrorist, not by a federal agent, but a 15-year-old boy in seat 1A. Who the hell has root access to ClearLock besides Monroe? An FAA supervisor asked. No one answered, until a younger analyst near the back muttered, "His son." Excuse me? I've seen the code tags before. It's Finn Monroe. He's the secondary architect. Probably the only person besides Elias who can run ClearLock alone. The room went still. Back on the plane, Barbara Shaw was sweating. She pulled aside the younger flight attendant and whispered, "Do you think he can actually shut down the whole system like this?" The younger woman blinked. He already did. Barbara looked at Finn again, now quietly sketching something with his fingertip on the back of a napkin. His calmness made it worse. Terrifying, even. Elias glanced at his son's drawing. A simple diagram. A triangle with 3 dots, connected. He smiled faintly. "Protocol complete?" Elias asked softly. Finn tapped the napkin twice. Done. And in that same moment, across 3 states, 152 flights were rerouted, $740 million in operational credits were frozen, and 3 airline CEOs received a single-line alert on their secure channels. Passenger ethics emergency override has been executed. Audit begins now. And not one of them knew that the boy they refused to see had just become their reckoning. At 38,000 feet, the silence in first class was louder than the engines. Finn sat motionless, eyes half closed, while passengers whispered like they were in church. No one dared ask questions. Not after what just happened. Barbara tried to speak again. "Dr. Monroe, I didn't mean—" Elias raised a single hand, quiet, composed, but final. "I'm not the one you'll answer to." He turned his phone face down and tapped the edge once. Thousands of miles away, inside the executive tower of VectorJet HQ, CEO Martin Elridge was pacing in socks. His shoes sat under his desk, untouched. The email on his screen had just one line: Passenger ethics emergency override. Active. Investigative freeze in effect. Then came the second message. This one had a signature. Finn Monroe ClearLock. Emergency route. Ethics grid systems. FAA federal clearance access. Level 1R. Martin froze. "The kid," he whispered. He knew Elias Monroe had authored the ClearLock framework years ago, but this meant his son had been granted live override rights by the FAA. He turned to his aide. "How old is he?" 15. Autistic, but they say he helped design the behavioral logic interface for ClearLock 3.0. Martin's breath caught. They had dismissed the Monroe family from airline advisory panels last year. They said the boy wasn't socially fit for field testing. Now he had just frozen 152 flights and $740 million in operational routing credit. And inside that plane, Finn was sipping orange juice through a paper straw like he didn't just put the entire aviation industry under audit. Barbara couldn't take it anymore. "What's going to happen to me?" she whispered. Elias finally looked at her. Calm, controlled, but lethal. "That depends," he said, "on whether your apology is for my son, or for what he can do." She blinked, but Finn didn't even look up. He was already drawing again. The plane didn't make an emergency landing. It didn't need to. VectorJet Flight 318 was grounded from the sky, not by weather, not by terrorism, but by a quiet 15-year-old boy sipping juice and doodling in his notebook. As the aircraft descended, the captain's voice came on again, this time shakier. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've been directed to land at a secure federal facility for an in-flight audit and coordination. This is not a safety concern, but you are asked to remain seated. Thank you." Passengers began murmuring. A few looked panicked. Barbara leaned against the galley wall, face pale. She hadn't said a word since Elias spoke. The younger flight attendant mouthed, "What is happening?" Barbara just shook her head. She didn't know. Not really. As they touched down, a long line of black vehicles was already waiting near the tarmac. Not police cars. These were federal. No airline branding, no welcome banners, just silence, urgency, and men in plain suits with federal clearance badges. Elias stood first. Finn followed. Neither said a word. But when the cabin door opened and the lead investigator stepped aboard, he didn't ask for the captain. He didn't ask for the flight manifest. He walked straight up to Finn and said, "Protocol validated. Sir, your report has been cross-verified. We're ready to proceed." The entire cabin watched, jaws slack. Barbara finally whispered, "Did he just call him sir?" Elias turned briefly toward her, eyes sharp. "You assumed he was weak because he didn't shout, because he didn't cry." He paused, then added, just loud enough for the whole row to hear, "He didn't need to." Finn looked over his shoulder, calm, not smug, not vengeful, just aware. Then he walked out of the plane, flanked by the very system designed to protect people like him, but that had ignored him. Until now. It took just 6 minutes after touchdown for the first domino to fall. At VectorJet San Francisco HQ, 3 executives were already on a call with FAA oversight when the screen froze, then blinked red. A line of white text appeared. Ethics Grid Protocol 1R Alpha has been activated. Below that, all flight crew data flagged for review. All passenger interactions logged. Operational credit temporarily suspended. Ethics score 41.9. Non-compliant. The CFO choked. 41.9? The ethics grid score hadn't dipped below 80 in over 5 years. This was catastrophic. Back at the secure federal terminal, Finn was seated in a quiet briefing room. 2 agents reviewed data with him in silence, while Elias stood nearby. No words were needed. One of the agents finally asked, "Did you expect this?" Finn nodded once, then slid a flash drive across the table. "What's this?" the agent asked. Finn's voice was steady. "Video and audio logs, passenger discrimination patterns, flagged timestamps from the last 4 months of flights, and 1 audio clip." He looked up. Of Barbara Shaw mocking an autistic boy on a different flight. 2 months ago. Silence. The agent didn't ask how Finn had access. He already knew. The Monroe family built the ClearLock behavioral AI. Elias wrote the core code. Finn refined the pattern recognition layer. It could catch what humans overlooked. It had caught it. Back on the flight, the younger flight attendant sat alone in the jump seat. She stared at her phone. She'd just gotten an alert. "Your airline has been downgraded to pending audit status by the FAA. Please prepare for compliance interviews." Her hands shook, not from fear of Finn, but from the realization they never stood a chance. He didn't crash the system. He forced it to reveal itself. By the time the sun rose over the East Coast, the story had already gone viral. Not just a slap on a plane, not just a meltdown, but a 15-year-old autistic boy who quietly triggered an ethics shutdown of an entire airline, and possibly the whole industry. Morning shows scrambled. Hashtags surged. Hashtag ClearLock. Kid, have Finn Monroe. Hashtag passenger. Justice. Now some said he was a hacker. Others called him a genius. But one clip silenced the noise. A 2-minute segment from a national news interview. Elias Monroe sitting beside his son, Finn. The reporter tried to open softly. "Finn, do you understand what's happening right now?" Finn didn't look up from his notebook. "I activated a protocol. The system worked." The room paused. The reporter nodded. "Did you mean to shut down over 150 flights?" Finn blinked. "I meant to make the system feel what I felt. Ignored, humiliated, small. Now it knows." Elias didn't interrupt. He just sat beside his son like a lighthouse. The interview clip went viral in 6 hours. By noon, the FAA had been called to a congressional hearing. By 2:00 p.m., 3 airlines suspended operations voluntarily for internal ethics audits. By nightfall, VectorJet's CEO resigned live on CNBC. Meanwhile, in a quiet home in Vermont, Finn was in the backyard. Shoes off, sketching diagrams with chalk on concrete. A neighbor peeked over the fence. "Hey, you're the kid from the news, huh?" Finn shrugged. "Just wanted to say, you didn't just stop a plane, you started something." Finn looked up. For the first time all week, he smiled. The congressional chamber was packed. Media swarmed outside. FAA officials sat stiffly in dark suits. Airline lobbyists whispered behind clipboards. But every camera lens was locked on one chair, center panel, front and center. Finn Monroe, blue blazer, no tie. Fingers tapping lightly on his sketch pad. Beside him, Elias looked calm, grounded. But every muscle in his jaw said he was ready for war. The chairman leaned into his mic. "Mr. Monroe," he said, eyes flicking between father and son. "Your son initiated a system override that rerouted 152 flights and froze $740 million in credits, without warning. Do you understand the weight of that?" Elias opened his mouth, but Finn raised a hand. "I do," he said quietly, "and I don't regret it." The room went silent. Finn continued, voice steady. "I helped design the system that's supposed to flag unethical behavior before it harms passengers. But no one listens to silence. They only react to collapse." A low murmur spread. The chairman cleared his throat. "You're saying this was intentional?" Finn nodded. "Barbara Shaw slapped me, but that wasn't the trigger. The silence after was." He tapped his pen on the desk. "You built a system that hears everything. I just proved it works." One FAA commissioner leaned forward. "Son, this has never been done before. Not by anyone, much less a civilian." Elias finally spoke. "Then maybe the problem is that it took a civilian, my son, to expose what your institutions refused to see." The commissioner leaned back. Outside, news tickers flashed. "FAA faces ethics collapse after teen's testimony. Clear lock protocol goes federal. The boy who silenced an industry." Inside the chamber, Finn had stopped talking. He was drawing again. A small square with 4 corners, each labeled Dignity, Access, Safety, Voice below it. Clear Access Charter. It started with Chicago O'Hare. At exactly 9:02 a.m., the airport's coordination board issued a quiet internal memo. Effective immediately. All operational sync with VectorJet, Skyloom, and Nova Blue, suspended pending full compliance review, based on ClearLock and FAA temporary override ruling. Within 15 minutes, Denver, Atlanta, and Seattle-Tacoma followed. By noon, 19 major airports across the country had officially pulled live integration from 3 airlines, citing unverified passenger ethics compliance. $740 million in operational credits froze like ice. Planes sat idle. Gate agents stared at screens that no longer responded. In boardrooms, CEOs shouted, but the system didn't care, because the system wasn't responding to them anymore. It was responding to Finn, or more specifically, his protocol. The FAA had quietly adopted the first stage of the Clear Access Emergency Framework, built from Finn's charter sketch. Every airline now had 72 hours to submit real-time data on crew behavior, passenger incidents, and ethical compliance protocols. Failure to comply, automatic downgrade to non-cooperative status, meaning no federal routing, no preferred gates, no clearance. Inside Elias Monroe's home, Finn sat in the same backyard chair, a quiet breeze ruffling his notes. He didn't watch the news. He just drew. Across the country, the headlines rolled in. FAA enacts Monroe Protocol amid industry shakeup. Airline ethics ratings to determine route access. The boy who forced a 3.1B reckoning. And somewhere in a sealed federal hangar, Barbara Shaw sat alone, suspended, under investigation, her file flagged with 6 ethics violations she never imagined anyone would trace back. But Finn did. And now, everyone was watching. 1 week after the hearing, Washington, D.C. looked different. Reporters lined the federal building steps like statues. Their cameras weren't pointed at a president or senator, but at a 15-year-old boy walking quietly beside his father. Finn Monroe wore the same navy blazer. No tie, no speeches. He didn't need one. Inside, the FAA administrator sat across a long mahogany table, a stack of documents in front of him. One of them bore a bold black title, the Clear Access Charter. It was short, 8 pages, 4 pillars: dignity, access, safety, voice. A framework that forced airlines to monitor how they treated every passenger, especially those with disabilities, neurodivergence, or invisible conditions. Every airline had to comply or lose federal access. "Is this what you want?" the administrator asked Finn. Finn didn't look up right away. He flipped to the last page, where a signature line waited. He uncapped a pen and signed. Elias stood behind him, silent, unmoving. The administrator looked at Elias, then back to Finn. "You understand what this means? You're forcing us to change everything." Finn finally met his eyes. Then it's working. By noon, the FAA published the charter online. By sunset, 32 airlines had signed emergency compliance statements. By morning, Congress had fast-tracked the Passenger Ethics Enforcement Act, using the charter as its foundation. They didn't call it Clear Access. The public called it something else: the Finn Code. In a quiet cafe in Vermont, Barbara Shaw sat alone, watching her name scroll across the bottom of a news feed. She'd been officially banned from holding any position in aviation for life. Whistleblower reports confirmed her past conduct: mockery, manipulation, favoritism, even cover-ups. She used to brag she could make or break a passenger with a smile. Now, even her smile couldn't get her on a standby list. 1 month later, Finn walked into a middle school auditorium. Not for a press conference, just a community forum. Folding chairs, parents, teachers, a few local reporters. His name wasn't on the flyer, but people came anyway. The moderator handed him a mic. "Would you like to say anything?" Finn blinked, then said softly, "People think silence is weakness, but it isn't. Silence holds power, because it listens longer." Someone in the back stood and clapped. Then another, then all. He didn't smile, not for applause. He smiled because for once, the world got quiet with him. In a boardroom 2 floors above FAA headquarters, a digital dashboard glowed. Clear access grid, active airlines compliant, 28 under review, 7 suspended, 3 flights monitored in real time, 5,412 each flight now carried more than passengers. It carried accountability, because one boy had refused to accept a slap in silence, because he coded something better. Meanwhile, in his backyard, Finn drew another square. This time he labeled the corners. Stillness, pattern, signal, reform underneath. He wrote a single word: next. He never raised his voice. He raised the standard. And the sky finally listened. 2 months had passed. The world had moved fast, policies rewritten, CEOs fired, and a new aviation era quietly launched under the name of a teenage boy. But at home in Vermont, life for Finn Monroe moved slowly, just the way he liked it. His backyard was still scattered with chalk marks, some faded from rain. His sketchpad thicker now, filled with strange grids and hand-drawn interfaces, half imagination, half genius. The world might have called it a blueprint. To him, it was just processing. Every Tuesday, he and Elias walked to the local diner. Same booth, same order, same silence. But now, people nodded when they passed. Not with pity, not curiosity, with respect. One morning, a woman stopped them on their walk. "Mr. Monroe?" she said, her eyes landing on Finn. He didn't answer, just looked down. Elias smiled gently. He hears you. The woman hesitated, then pulled out a photo. Her daughter, maybe 6 years old, in a wheelchair. She was kicked off a flight last year. No one cared, she said. But last week, they apologized. The airline, full letter, CEO signed. I think that's because of you. Finn didn't speak. He simply took the photo, looked at it for a moment, then gave a small nod. The woman cried right there on the sidewalk. Across the country, others were still reckoning with what had happened. At a leadership summit in D.C., one airline executive stood behind the podium, visibly shaken. "We spent billions designing airplanes for efficiency, but we never measured dignity," he said. "It took a kid in a hoodie to show us that." In classrooms, professors began citing the Finn effect in ethics lectures. In airports, digital signage now displayed a new badge next to compliant airlines. Clear access verified, ethics monitored in real time. And in Congress, one senator quietly proposed an amendment. No passenger, regardless of condition, identity, or means, shall be treated as less than human in federal airspace. They named it Finn's Law. But to Finn, all that noise meant little. He still loved rain on metal. He still hated bright lights. He still wore headphones in crowds. And when people asked how he changed the world, he only ever said one thing: "I didn't. I just made the world hear what was already broken." One night, Elias found Finn on the porch, curled up in his favorite blanket, eyes closed. "You tired?" Elias asked. Finn shook his head. "Just resting from being loud." Elias sat beside him. "For what it's worth," he said, "I think you were loud in the right way." Finn didn't respond, but he reached over and held his father's hand. That said enough. Some people write books, some march with signs, some scream on stages, and some, like Finn Monroe, simply let silence say what the world refuses to hear. It started as a whisper, just one story, one kid, one call. But what Finn Monroe triggered didn't stop when the cameras did. It kept moving. 3 months after the FAA adopted the Clear Access Charter, a flight attendant training center in Dallas unveiled a new module, Neurodivergent Passenger Sensitivity and Response, written in part by advocates who had never been consulted before. The opening slide read, "Inspired by the Clear Access Grid, because every passenger is someone's child." In San Diego, a 9-year-old girl with epilepsy boarded a flight for the first time since her seizure mid-air a year prior. This time, the crew already had her medical file preloaded, her seat reconfigured for emergency access, and a small note tucked next to her tray table. "Welcome aboard. You're safe with us today," her mother wept. But perhaps the greatest shift happened quietly, online. A boy in rural Kentucky built an app that let neurodiverse travelers flag their needs discreetly to airlines before flying. He named it Echo Fly. It was downloaded 40,000 times in a week. One review read, "My son used to fear flying. Now he feels seen before he even steps on the plane." That boy later said he started coding after hearing about the kid with the chalk who made the government listen. Back in Vermont, Finn wasn't watching any of this unfold. He was planting a garden. His father, Elias, watched from the porch as Finn dug his fingers into the dirt, rows of neat little seedlings in place. Tomatoes, spinach, a row labeled mint in small handwriting. "Why mint?" Elias asked. Finn didn't look up. "Smells clean, covers up noise." Elias nodded. That made sense. Later that week, a group of aviation executives flew to Vermont, unannounced. They didn't come for a photo op. They came to ask. Not, "How did you do it?" but, "How do we not fail again?" Finn didn't invite them inside. He just handed them a folded paper, handwritten in neat block letters. "Listen before designing. Build for discomfort, not ease. Don't measure quiet as compliance. Test systems on people who've been hurt by them. Never assume silence means consent. Hire more people who look like me. That paper now hangs, framed, inside the FAA's policy review room. No one touches it. A year later, the sky looked different. Flights ran with the new dashboards monitoring ethics breaches in real time. Crews received live feedback. Passengers flagged misconduct discreetly through apps and encrypted systems, not to shame, but to course correct. 3 major airlines restructured their operations, citing Monroe-inspired integrity design. People no longer whispered about change. They flew in it. One evening, Finn received a letter from the daughter of a flight attendant who had once mocked a disabled passenger and got fired for it. Her letter didn't beg forgiveness. It acknowledged the harm. It ended with, "You made my mom face herself, and in doing that, you made her better. Thank you." Some revolutions come with riots and broken glass. Some arrive quietly through protocol and policy. And sometimes they arrive because one child, labeled fragile, invisible, and odd, refuses to go unheard. Finn Monroe never chased attention. He chased fairness. And somehow, in doing so, he made an entire industry realize something it had forgotten. Dignity isn't optional. It's the baseline. As the wind brushed through his garden, Finn sketched a new grid in his notebook. This one had 5 boxes. Air, sound, people, pause. Grace beneath it, he wrote, for those who come next. Because stories like his don't end. They echo and echo until someone finally hears. What would you have done if you were Finn's father? Have you ever stayed silent to protect someone you love, only to realize your silence was the loudest thing in the room? Tell us where you're watching from. And if Finn's story reminded you of someone in your life who was overlooked but powerful.